Chicago Fire Season 14 Episode 13 Review. Crews steals the hour as the teams deal with a traumatic event. It's the moment we've all been waiting for, as Chicago Fire and the rest of the One Chicago universe return with a 3-hour crossover event. Just like many others, the crossover is a true one, with all teams working together throughout the 3-hour stretch. That being said, you can still feel the transition from Chicago Fire to Chicago Med and then to Chicago PD. Haley Upton has not been forgotten about for Chicago Fire fans. It could seem odd to start the crossover event with a lot of focus on Chicago PD characters. However, we've come to know them all through the One Chicago crossovers, even if you're not like me and watch all 3 shows every single week. Chicago Fire Season 14 Episode 13 Review. Crews steals the hour as the teams deal with a traumatic event. The first responders are all intertwined in each other's careers and lives, and we see that immediately with Haley Upton's return. It doesn't take long for her to confirm where she went after the Chicago PD Season 11 finale, and her joining the FBI made a world of sense. After all, she matched OA's energy throughout the Chicago PD/FBI crossover so well. It wasn't getting to know where she went that stood out, though. It was learning that people knew. Mouch quickly noted that she moved up in the world, and she has also paid attention to Mouch's career, and Kid quickly noted that she'd heard Upton was in Detroit. These people have become family over the years, and we're reminded of that with just this small bit of dialogue. Also, having Mouch and Kid there, making it clear to Pascal that they already knew Upton, made me smile. It cut out a lot of unnecessary explanation, which would have been the case if it had been someone like Vasquez who did the meet and greet. Upton quickly proved why she became an FBI agent, taking command of the scene, but also paying attention to what the other adults in the room were saying. It's always a shame when someone else comes in and takes over a case, but Upton knows that sometimes there isn't a choice. That doesn't mean she won't try to find a way to circumvent the higher-ups, but she understands and respects the chain of command throughout this episode. The best way to circumvent it all? Well, how about going to see Voight? She pulls intelligence fully into the case, knowing that Voight and his team are the best people to have investigating. Would I have loved to see a reunion with Burgess and Atwater? Maybe, but I don't think the episode needed it. Plus, it's not like Upton was really all that close with the others. It was Voight and Halstead, and that was about it. My heart broke for Crews and Severide. The case itself is confusing from the beginning, and it's meant to be, allowing for a bigger investigation that pulls in every single show within the universe. As a plane lands via autopilot, it's clear that something has happened on board. The fact that it does land safely is a sign that a hijacker hasn't taken over, but something has gone wrong. Nobody was prepared for anything they were about to see on that plane. You can run through all sorts of scenarios, but facing 188 dead passengers is something that you cannot prepare yourself for. And we get to see the aftermath via Crews, Severide, and others who stepped on that plane. There was no shame in the shock they were hit with, and I adored how nobody judged them for it, while there was a need to appear strong. Kid made it clear to Macy that she would be shaken by what she was only hearing. Crews, who steals the hour, is far more shaken than Severide, and I think some of that comes from experience and current life events. They have both seen terrible things. But Crews is a father. Sure, Severide has fostered, but he doesn't quite have the family that Crews does, and while Crews doesn't say it at first, you know that he's thinking about his family as he looks at everyone on the plane. Fortunately for him, he wasn't the one to walk up the plane. After realizing it was a hazmat situation, Crews and others had to deplane and undergo decontamination. It was Severide who suited up in Squad's temporary hazmat gear, so he could A. get an idea of the severity of the situation and B. get the black box that would offer a look back at the events that happened. He walked past the elderly couple holding hands, the child with his headphones around the back of his neck, and the babe in arms. Chicago Fire outdid themselves with the sound of what those people were likely making while on the plane, giving us a chance to feel what Severide was likely feeling as he walked up the aisle. It's a shiver I don't think will disappear for a long time as I think about this episode, and it lingers with Severide throughout. To be honest, as I did with the Final Destination movies, I'm not sure I'll be able to step onto a plane without thinking about the scene. It won't stop me from getting on the plane. But it was so well done both visually and audibly that it's going to play in the back of my mind. Just a few seasons ago, Severide would have bottled this until it exploded. Having him open up to kids shows just how far this couple has come, and it offers me hope that they can continue to make it work. It is everything Severide has seen that makes him need to get to the bottom of the situation. He needs to know who did it so that they pay. And that is the Severide we have all come to know and love. A couple of head-scratching moments despite all the good. There were some moments during the first hour of the One Chicago crossover that took me out of the story. The first was Violet and Novak traveling in the ambulance with barely any PP. What was that face shield supposed to do? We just had Severide suiting up in squad's hazmat gear, and yet the paramedics take the lone survivor in barely anything? Considering that they had no idea what the chemical toxin was at the time, they acted completely recklessly. It's no wonder the U.S. Marshals were outside the hospital, refusing to let Ombo 61 in. However, I will argue that they should have let Violet into the back of the ambulance when she initially wanted to get in there. It sucked. Having to wait, but one patient, or two in this case, as the woman was pregnant, can't be put before a whole hospital of patients. I would argue that the isolation units should have been set up quickly, allowing everyone to get inside and straight to them, considering everyone was eventually able to get in there anyway. It didn't make sense to have such a huge hold-up outside. I guess the marshals needed to be paid to actually do something. But back to this PP. As Cruz and Cap both suffer from the chemical while in the squad engine, it's clear that Violet and Novak needed more. And I don't understand why Pascal didn't force that on them. Sure, there was a patient, but first responders still need to keep themselves safe. The next part that took me out of the episode was in the morgue. How did a secured room not have sprinklers? Those doors could only be reopened by a firefighter, which meant there was a chance they would be closed off in the event of a fire. What place wouldn't be expected to have a sprinkler system? Did the morgue really think that nobody would ever be trapped in that room? I'll give Lennox her due, she remained calm. That comes from her military experience, but sometimes, a situation and the panic around you can upset your own nervous system. She may be used to war zones, but she's not used to fires in a trapped room. Yet, she followed Severide's orders and helped as they waited for Kid to get to the morgue. Then we end it with Halstead just suddenly turning up, as it looks like Upton is about to be shot after being hit over the head. I actually don't think they needed Halstead to show up in the way he did. Having people rush out of the morgue because of the fire could have been perfectly timed to save Upton's life. That could have then led to Halstead, and maybe others, running up the alleyway. Although it gave me the Halstead-Upton moment I had been desperately waiting for after learning that Halstead was involved in the same case Upton was, which brought her to Chicago in the first place. In a way, I wish the One Chicago crossover trailer hadn't spoiled that Upton and Halstead would be a part of it. Or at least, have just told us Upton was going to be part of it. That could have made for a much more dramatic moment as Halstead came running up the alleyway. In the end, it was a strong start to the One Chicago crossover, and it felt like any other hour of Chicago Fire Season 14. There are always going to be moments that don't sit right in real life with these shows, but the story itself was compelling, prompting a need to follow up to find out exactly what the chemical was and whether everyone could be saved. While I don't think it's as good as the 2025 crossover event, this one works well as a 3-hour movie and naturally brings together the various first responders, cops, and medical staff. As usual, I look forward to another one, but I'm also looking forward to a standard episode of Chicago Fire, as that opener was heavy, Please don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe for more videos. Thanks for watching.